Welcome to our January. We have our dad joke because we're dads,
Yeah.
and that's just what we do with jokes.
Dad times 3 over here.
Should we go first? I think it's 1-0
Sure.
me, but we've actually done a really good job of not laughing at each other lately. So
That just means we're not that funny.
not that funny. That's
Yeah.
probably true. Which is also a dad joke.
Mm-hmm.
That's a definition. So go ahead and go
sure,
first.
I'll go first.
You do it.
Okay. How do you follow Will Smith in the snow?
He's a fresh prince of snow. Close?
Yes. You follow the Fresh Prince.
Yes. You get
All
a
right.
point for getting it right.
You're the ultimate. Actually, yes. You get a point, so it's 2-0. You didn't laugh, but you got it right. So
I laughed at the fact that I got it right.
yeah.
So my wife was really angry I bought this revolving chair. When she sat down, she came around. Not that funny. All right, let's get into our information. And as we always say, January is for the planners.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So today we're going to go over two things that we see all of our planners asking us right now. One thing is credit score and various ins and outs of the credit, because I know he helps people with credit.
Mm-hmm.
And then two, usually this time of year, not always, but usually it's the leftover houses from November and December sitting around the market. And the buyers are, just checking to see if it's something that's doable, something they can invest in, something they can build some equity and do some repairs and updates on. So first thing first.
Yeah, the resolution buyers. Talking about credit and the planners.
Credit. So let's do this. Let's do two things that people may not know about credit that they should know.
That's a great question. So I would say number one, credit ratio on revolving accounts from credit limit to balance is one of the biggest drivers of credit score.
Yeah.
You could have somebody that has a really good payment history, that has a robust credit profile, lots of types of credit. But if you have your credit cards maxed out, no matter what the balance is, no matter what the credit limit is, if it's 80%, 90% of the credit limit, your credit score is really going to suffer.
Bad.
So, some people get into that cycle where they're just making the minimum payments. But if you have that balance all the way up to the credit limit, it's very detrimental.
So one thing I've always done, and I'm kind of a nerd about it, is I have my Excel. And I do my budget. I'm sure you do a budget as well.
Sure.
So I have all my credit cards listed on that budget. And what I do is I have how much I have on the card, what the interest rate is, and what the 80% is.
Yeah.
So that way I know what my target should be, knowing that that's going to be strengthening my credit as much as possible. And once I know those three things, I can decide which ones I need to pay off first, which ones I need to handle better. And then, if it's a pinch, Christmas just happened, gifts and things, I know I need to tackle this one before I tackle that one, and so on and so forth.
We're seeing, this is the sort of tailwind, is January, talking to people, we're after Christmas and things of that sort. 30% of the credit limit is the biggest key there.
Yeah.
You want to try to keep it under that mark. But again, and I'll flip it to number two, things that people don't know, that is the fixable item, is paying off credit cards. You'd rather have high balance on credit cards if you're looking to do a mortgage, so that I can tell you just pay it off and then we're good, versus having late payments on your credit. That's something we can't solve.
Yeah.
The toothpaste is out of the tube, so to speak. So the high balances, while it definitely lowers your credit score, we can fix that. I say, hey, if you pay down this so-and-so bank card by getting under that 30% limit, it's going to cost you X amount of dollars, but it's going to boost your score by 30 or 40 points, which sometimes means a 0.25% in interest rate, which over time is huge than the amount that you're investing to pay down those credit cards. So that's something that we can solve.
Perfect.
And we can solve it with something we call a credit rescore. We tell you to pay down the credit cards. You come back to us with an updated statement, and we...
How long does it usually take? 30 days, 45 days?
Oh, no. Credit rescore is anywhere between 5 and 7 business days if we need to do it that quick. But if you're in a long-term planning position, then maybe we don't need to do a rescore. Maybe we just say, hey, pay down the credit cards and keep them there. And then once you're ready to actually buy a house, we'll pull an updated report and we'll do it that way. So,
So aside from credit card, what other types of things do you typically see in regards to the most effective, helpful to people's credit scores?
So helpful, I'll just use the flip side of that. When you have late payments, It's very, very difficult to overcome them in the short term.
Okay.
So in terms of the helpful piece, if you are someone who got behind on some things and you had a few late payments, distancing yourself 12 months from the last time you were late is the
Okay.
biggest solution. So sometimes I'll say, hey, you're 3 months removed from being having that 12-month cycle where you've had no late payments. Let's wait 3 months and we'll reevaluate and try to get you to buy. So if we're in January and we're saying, hey, let's meet back up in April,
Get a
that's
lot
not
of
necessarily the worst thing. Just know that it's because of that 12-month mark. So that it's helpful to know the time frame from when your last late was to now, so that we can project when you're going to be ready.
So I got a lot of people too that sometimes like medical bills,
Mhm.
college bills. They can often reach out to
Mhm.
that debtor
Mhm.
and restructure it, or at least try to figure something out where they can kind of negotiate and get themselves back on track.
Yeah.
Do you usually give that advice?
So medical bills are interesting because we look at them and we say, hey, we're not going to attach a payment to it. Sometimes we can sort of just ignore them altogether, but they have hindered your credit score. So while having that outstanding bill isn't going to prevent you from qualifying, if we can get you to have it removed to improve your credit score,
Cool.
then maybe we'll suggest that. Student loans are a little bit different because
Yeah.
a lot of
That's
times,
tricky right now.
yeah, what's owed is owed, and now those payments are due again. And so people are having these struggles with, hey, I've had these in deferment. I'm used to not having to pay them, and now I'm having to pay them again, and making sure that they don't get behind on them. Now, some of the student loan balances are higher than the original
Yeah.
limit, and they just continue to accrue interest. So that's just a whole separate topic. Just know that we are, even if you're not paying on them or you haven't been paying on them, we still attach a payment, and you have to qualify with that payment.
Okay.
But medical bills, a little bit different. We don't require you to pay them off, but if you can have them paid and removed, it might improve your credit score.
So the bottom line is there's lots of different things that can be affecting your credit, and Tim will not only run it and give you an idea of what is in there, sometimes even surprises.
Surprises. That's what's interesting. I mean,
Sometimes.
you, I you have the Credit Karmas of the world, and people's credit cards give you credit
Yes,
scores. I
mine
don't
do.
think it's necessarily a bad thing. It's
No,
something that allows you to monitor it. But sometimes there's a
it's not the gospel.
discrepancy from that number to what I pull. So
Yeah.
first of all, the expectation can change. And secondly, sometimes something will pop up. I just had this last Friday as I was on the phone with a girl, and I mentioned a credit card that had gone into some, a poor status. I think it was a discharge actually. And I started to tell her what it was, and it was a Home Depot card. She goes, "I've never had a Home
Holy
Depot. I've
cow.
never stepped foot in a Home Depot before." And I said, "You're missing out." But she had no idea what it was, so I gave her the contact number to the creditor, and she's going to try to investigate and try to get it removed somehow, some way. We're
That's
not sure if
crazy.
somebody opened it in her name or if it was an ex-boyfriend, or so she has some investigating to do. But she would not have known about that had she not met with me.
So not just to record it, so that way tackle any surprises, but you also do it for free and give them some advice on which things to pay down first, which things you can probably slow down on paying, and give you kind of a plan of attack.
This same girl, and she's on the right path now, but she was with a credit repair agency. And not to dispel anything that those individuals do, but I will say that my putting my eyes on your credit file is free. Going to someone who is a monthly fee to try to get some of this solved, if you can think about it, it benefits them to string you along. If they're getting paid monthly to try to fix your credit, I wish it was the other way around, where they say we will fix it, and once we fix it, you pay us. It's not that way. So if you have credit concerns, or if you want to buy a house in the next 12, 24, even 36
Sometimes,
months, next sometime in the future, come to me now, free consultation to talk about your credit.
Same here. I'll sit down with buyers all the time and say, this is the things you have to get in line, and curb expectations too, because those first time buyers are like, oh, I want a house just like my parents. Maybe someday we'll get there, but sometimes they can. You know what I mean? But we have to have that conversation. So speaking of which, we'll shift into the second part we're seeing a lot of right now. It's folks that are seeing these homes that do need a little love and do little concern, and then they don't mind. Not too many of my buyers want to necessarily get their hands too dirty. They're very busy. They got a lot of work and traveling and commuting, job stuff.
Yeah.
So they have to bring in contractors and handymen and things like that. So they have to kind of take that all in consideration. What kind of things are appraisers looking for? We'll start there, and then what kind of work can be done under certain loans.
So
With
again,
appraisers.
you said this earlier. We're in that sort of season where we have leftovers.
Yep.
These properties that have been on the market for quite a while, and maybe they're price cuts. Maybe haven't been price cuts. I don't know. But so we have buyers who see the good bones. They see that it's in an area they like. They
Yep.
see that maybe the property has some acreage that they're attached to.
Yep.
And they want to know, if we were to offer with just standard financing, conventional VA, USDA, FHA, what could possibly be flagged
What
by
are
an
hiccups?
appraiser?
Mm-hmm.
And we also, on the flip side, we have some listing agents who, because there's been so much fallout over the last 18 months of people just putting in contracts and then walking away after an inspection, they're putting in listings, hey, we're only taking hard money, cash, investors, and things of that sort.
Or approved. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a big difference between pre-approval and approval.
Right.
Huge.
Right.
When you sit down with Tim the first time, you might get a pre-approval.
Mm-hmm.
All right, but once you get into it, like approval means your finances in a row and you're a solid buyer.
Correct.
How far in the process do you usually go?
Well, part of the approval is the collateral to the loan.
Got it.
Right. When we approve you for a loan, we say, hey, you have the income, the credit, the savings,
The gold doubloons.
but the collateral for the loan is eligible, ineligible. How do we know that? It's the appraisal. So we want to know that the $300,000, $500,000, $700,000 that we're lending to you to buy this house, that the collateral for that loan is in good shape. What the appraisers are looking for, really,
Yep.
and this is across the board, is it a livable home with no safety hazards?
Yep.
Right. So, yes, there are sometimes VA, they have, they're particular about railings and things of that sort.
A lot of railings.
They're a couple $100 to cure that kind of stuff. There isn't a huge discrepancy between the type of property, VA, FHA, USDA, and conventional, what they're looking for versus what they won't allow.
Yeah, you start getting into some differences when you have livable subspaces and second houses and things on property, but that's not the norm. And if you're a buyer, well, there's a lot of buyers listening to this. So if that's the case, do prepare. Like if you want a second house on the property, or you want like an in-law suite that's fully finished, like those are, you got to be careful of those. That affects the loan.
Yeah. So USDA, Maryland Mortgage Program, some of these programs that are no down payment or down payment assistance, they don't necessarily like to have income producing items on the property. But the GSEs, Fannie, Freddie, FHA, even, they're starting to get a little bit more lenient on what we call ADUs, or accessory dwelling units, where they go, hey, in order for this crazy housing crisis that we're having right now, where there's not enough on the market and there's not enough property for people to even rent, we need to allow better financing for people to purchase these properties. So for you to buy a house that has a secondary structure, okay, maybe you can't do a USDA loan and go no money down, but you can still do a conventional financing and they're fine with it. You can even qualify with potential rent from that secondary structure. So types of properties, obviously important to talk to me about, but the quality of
it. And as I walk through the houses with you, I can usually point out like some stuff that appraiser's going to know. Like the safety stuff, I've gotten pretty good at this point.
Yeah.
And there's even some weird stuff once in a while you would never thought of, like chipping paint around window ledges, because they consider that the possibility that it's lead. Little things like that. Like I've noticed at this point, every once in a while they'll throw me for a loop and they'll come up with something I haven't seen in a little while. But for the most part, we can walk through a house and say that's going to be bad, that's going to be good, this should be fine, that kind of stuff. And we can even build in it in the loan with Tim when we do the loan.
I just think, if it's a property that you can move right into and you have no concerns over safety if you had a young child in that particular house. But of course, things like mold and, leaks and broken windows and things of that sort, the security of that property definitely is hindered a little bit. So think of it from that sort of macro level of safety hazard. But if it's all cosmetic, and it's just an outdated property that needs some TLC, you could just do a standard loan. Everything's fine with that.
So let's say the standard loan, let's say there's a few little things. Let's say a broken window and the buyers really want it. Sellers aren't budging. Are we escrowing some of that? Can we put some money aside? Can we work on that a little bit in order to get it done?
You can only escrow for non-safety hazard items.
Okay.
So if it is a broken window, it's going to be a cost to cure. You can talk to the seller and say, hey, if you get a contractor to pay for this and to fix it, and maybe the seller can then put that expense, that invoice, on their side of the closing disclosure, so it just comes out of their net proceeds. There's different things you can do. And then if there are big issues, mold remediation,
septic,
septic's a big deal.
Septics.
We can talk to you about renovation products. It exists for a reason. Conventional, FHA, they both have renovation products where it allows you to finance renovations into the loan. So you have what we call the acquisition cost. So let's say it costs $300,000 to buy the house. You need to put $50 into it. You're putting your minimum down payment off of $350, which is the acquisition cost, roughly. So again, if it's severe, but you
Yeah, it's
know that
big.
this has good bones, a lot of times when you're done that renovation process, you're moving in with a good amount of equity
Yep.
because it's a house that nobody wanted to buy, so the price was lower, and then you put the money into it. So there are so
Yep.
many options. We just need to be very real about what type of property are you pursuing. Are you pursuing, a fixer upper because that's a skill set you have? Okay, well, let's talk about it. Here are your limitations.
Yep, and there's been a variety of those. So we know now that it doesn't have to be a perfect house. We can have some flexibility, some fluctuation. If something very, very severe pops up, we do have contingencies on that as well, like septics we've dealt with, roofs we've dealt with. But if it's just like minor stuff, we can always negotiate that out and maybe escrow it, maybe do it at a later time. We have options and ways to do it. Don't let little imperfections stop you from getting a pretty good deal on a house or
Yep.
getting some extra closing help, which will help you over time. Things like that, always more helpful. So
Yeah, we had one last fall where there were a significant amount of repairs that the buyer had negotiated. And we did the appraisal, and none of them were really required by the appraiser. So they kind of negotiated and figured out how they're going to get it paid for, what's going to be done, and all that kind of thing. And we were done our loan process, just sort of waiting for the seller and our
finish up.
contractors to finish up. That's fine.
Yep.
That's fine. And of course, if it was the flip side of that and the appraiser did require it, again, they get it fixed, send the appraiser back out there, verify it was fixed, and we'll close. So, but I think the biggest reason why I bring this up is just communicate the quality of the collateral, meaning what type of home are you pursuing and what type of work does it need, and then I can tell you the best way forward.
There you go. So we have all our options. We have these leftover houses. I'm going to quickly brief because we've talked about this in the past as well, but I would be remiss if I wasn't going over at least a little bit too. That we have in Calvert County perk seasons coming up. The wet season's coming up here soon too.
Mhm.
So you'll probably see a few more land listings coming up. And Tim also can do construction loans
Sure can.
if that's an option for you as well.
Mhm.
When if you own a home, we do that loan on the more likely we do it as if you're going to sell it at the very end of the process. And we build that into the loan.
Talking about a bridge loan.
No.
No.
Even then, like if someone's got to live in a house before
Yeah.
they do it, so you assume that they're going to sell it towards the end of that.
Oh yeah. For
Yeah,
the construction process.
for the construction
Got it.
process.
Yes.
So if you're in the house, you're like, what do I do? You still get the loan, you still do all the process, you can still make those payments, and then towards the end, that's when you put the house up about 3 months out or 2 months out.
Yeah.
And so we've done that before, we've gone through it, but with perk season coming up and people strapped for cash, like it's been we're on the tail end of a really rough year.
Mhm.
You're probably going to see some more land listed here as well after the perk season. So
Yeah.
come to Tim for that as well. We've talked about it in previous videos
Mhm.
that the building process is not that bad. It's pretty fun.
Yeah. I mean, you
can be.
just have to know what you want.
Yep.
The people that are indecisive tend to have a tough time with the construction
Sometimes
process.
just go to a builder and just do a package. Be like,
Mhm.
hey, or like my wife who picked every single little thing out. She enjoyed herself thoroughly. So it depends on who you got.
It worked
there.
out for you.
Yeah, it's fine. All right, so that's a summary of this month. The month of planners is we have credit scores, making sure you get yourself in a row, make sure you don't have any surprises in there, and have come talk to Tim about those things. And then sit down, we can talk about the buying process as well. Like we have the last few, we've already sat down
Yeah.
with a few people already.
This is a fun
Despite the
season
snow,
for me
despite the
because
snow, we've still sat down with people.
I mean, I did a lot of sledding yesterday, but this is a fun season for me in educating. I like it. I like sitting down with people, and even if it's a planning stage in 2 or 3 months out, it's fun to get people excited about it and seeing what the possibilities are.
And then we have a bunch of houses that are kind of still sitting in the market that need a little bit of love, and that's not a problem either. We can work on that. We can try to negotiate a few things out.
Mhm.
And then, like I said, the land process. Like if you want the land process, come back and talk to Tim about the construction, and then we can figure that as well because I've actually built my own house, and so we have that experience as well.
Absolutely.
And that's usually what January looks like, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Credit scores, leftover houses, and perk season.
I feel
That's
like
it.
this year is going to be the tale of two markets, and we're building up for probably a little bit of a spring explosion,
Yeah.
at least in terms of demand. There are definitely a lot of people who have been sitting on the sidelines for the last
Yep.
2 years, and they really want to buy something. So we just hope we have the inventory to match it, and then the interest rate environment is going to change over the next 12 months too. So it's going to be a wild 2024.
It'll be fine.
Sure.
We've done worse. We've done better. We've done worse. We've done it all. It's fine. We'll be all right. We'll figure it out. Thanks for joining us again this month.
Yeah. See you next
Be on the
month.
lookout. We have our health and wellness coming up on the 27th. Come do some push-ups and some sit-ups. And you get a chance to chat with the actual gym owners, ask them questions, and do like Q&A type stuff as well. So it'll be a fun one.
Awesome. Very cool.
See you next month.
See you next month.